Hi everyone. Welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis. I am back in the corner, or not even in the corner. I'm just the voice inside your head today. But I am joined by two wonderful faces on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Before I begin losing my mind to Thumper, which is the game we're playing today, Alex, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. I'm Gamasutra editor Alex Waro, and it's Friday, so let's just have ourselves a nice time.
And I can see Alex is hiding his face behind like a microphone cover.
Because I'm very professional.
Yeah, very professional, hiding your face when you're on video. And Marc, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Marc Flury. I'm the one of the two guys who made Thumper. I did all the programming on the game, and I co-designed the game with Brian Gibson. And Brian did all the music and all the art for Thumper.
Awesome. So I'm going to. We're playing actually the Nintendo Switch port of the game. So I am going to throw myself on the rails in just a second here. I will kick off with the first question because it's probably one of the few I'll get to ask. Marc, why did you all decide to port this game to Nintendo Switch, and how has the process been for you?
Sure. So, when the game comes out, you're always looking for new ways to get more people to play it. And the Switch, I didn't know anything more than anyone else. I knew that Nintendo had some new thing called the NX coming. And so I live in Seoul, Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not very far from Japan. And you may know that there's this, it actually just happened this year, Bit Summit in Kyoto, like a indie game festival. It's in Kyoto, Japan, and I was there last year showing the game on PSVR. And a couple guys from Nintendo Company Limited, the Japanese branch of Nintendo, they actually waited in line with a bunch of people. I don't know they must have waited for about an hour to play it. And they played it, and then they were very interested in it, and they asked me some kind of strange questions about whether or not I used the vibration feature in the DualShock controller. And then I think basically it led to me meeting them in Tokyo, and I saw like kind of the prototype of the Switch, or not even of the Switch, just of the Rumble technology. And so I think they were just interested in the game, and they also saw it as a good showcase of this new feature of the Switch. So I got a dev kit earlier this year and started porting it. It was a lot of work, but the Switch is a pretty cool system, and I think it is really developer friendly. And I can't really talk in detail about how the tools work or something because of NDAs and stuff. But it was fun, and it was definitely a big challenge getting the game to run at 60 frames per second, which was pretty critical for a game like Thumper. I mean, it's absolutely essential actually. It's not really playable at 30 frames per second. And it's no secret what's inside the Switch. It's sort of like it's a portable class of GPU, right? It's a portable system, so it was a big difference from like our previous target platforms, which were PS4 and PC. So it's basically what happened.
Right on. I don't know how much you can talk about, but I would love to dig in for a second to talk about that Rumble.
Because it's awesome.
I haven't. You go ahead. Sorry.
I'm using it right now, and I'm playing with the Joy-Con, so I've got one in each hand. Apparently, the gameplay capture is dropping frames hard.
Well, this is like this game is hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it may not come through Twitch perfectly, but we are doing our best to show it to you in all its glory. What's interesting to me is like I have played this on PC. Whereas Brian is now playing it on Switch. So I have no understanding of what Rumble does or how it's used. So if you can, like Marc, I'd love to know like how you used Rumble as a game designer, and like sort of if there was any significant changes between the Switch and prior versions.
So there's no real difference in gameplay. It's the exact same levels, same design, and everything. So basically, we just looked at the Rumble as like sort of the experience enhancer, and I do think that you could make, obviously, like Nintendo's done some stuff with like where like gameplay is only Rumble, like in I forget what the name of that thing is, 1-2 Switch. But it's something that actually I'd always wanted as a designer was to have like better force feedback in controllers, because it's been the same technology for so long. And the way that it works in like most controllers is it's what's called an eccentric spinning mass. It spins this little thing around, and that thing like has inertia, right? So, and it's off center. That's what makes the rumble happen. And so, because it has inertia and it's spinning, it takes a while to speed up and a while to slow down. So it can't really be that responsive, right? You can kind of just feel like a high frequency and a low frequency rumble, and that's about it. And then the Switch has something different, which I think it's similar to what's in iPhones now. It's called linear resonance actuator. I can't really explain the technology of how that works, but it is much more responsive, and it has really good fidelity too. Like you can sort of like think of it as like taking an audio file and extracting frequency and volume information and like actually using that to do the rumble. So some of the effects that you feel in Thumper are actually based on the actual like sounds that you hear in the game. And then we did a lot of just sort of like customization and like real-time modulation and stuff. So it works. It's funny because like when you're playing Thumper, like it's rumbling a lot. It's like rumbling almost the whole time because you're always like hitting stuff.
Yeah.
But there's just certain moments where it really kind of enhances, like when you go, when there's like a turn that's long and you're like sliding along it for a long time. If you're sliding like around a turn that goes to the left, you'll feel the rumble only in your right, because like the right side of your beetle is like scraping against this thing. So it's really cool to just have the stereo effect. Even if it was only stereo, it would make it better. But the stereo plus the high fidelity makes it like pretty cool. I think.
Nice. Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. So much of this game seems intimately tied to timing, right? I mean, it's a rhythm game, so of course, that like having access to rumble tech that is slow to respond sounds like it would be kind of maddening. Like I physically as a human being have a hard time keeping up with this game. I can't imagine like trying to design it so that you would have meaningful rumble feedback to the player at a clip that's fast enough to keep up with this game. It seems nuts.
Yeah, I mean, we do it in the, PS4 version, and it works fine on an Xbox controller too. I mean, it's okay. It's just, I think Brian and I were talking about it, and it's sort of like when the rumble does feel like kind of low quality, it sort of cheapens the whole experience. Like if you spend so much, like the audio and the visuals are like so beautiful and like put so much effort in that, and the rumble's like so simple and kind of dumb. I think the HD rumble definitely makes a difference in my mind.
Yeah, this brings to mind, I want to talk to you a lot about this game's design development and sort of how it's gone for you so far. But before we get on from timing and stuff, Gamasutra editor-in-chief Chris Graft, who could not be here today, even though he loves Thumper, I hope it's okay with me saying that, he wanted to ask about like the time signature and its relationship to the level numbers. So this is like beyond me. I don't know a lot about music or music theory, but was there some design process whereby you guys tied the way the time signatures play out to what level you're on?
There is, and I think it was just something Brian decided to do at a certain point. So it's like the first level's 4/4, right, which is a very simple,
That's
time
the one I
signatures,
know.
right? I mean, that's what people are used to hearing mostly, right? And then level 2 is like 2/4, which is not that much, which also is like people understand. Level 3 is 3/4, and I think level 4 is 4/4 again. But then it starts to get really hard because it's odd time to signatures, like 5/4. And there's nothing weird about odd time signatures other than people are not used to like listening to music in that or something, right? And what's funny to me is that was something I knew he did, but I'd kind of forgotten. And like when I play the game, like I don't even really have to think about the music. Like it's just like second nature to me because I play this game so much. But
yeah.
And then it came out and all these people discovered it, and it was just kind of this cool layer to like how it was structured. So like it goes to like 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, 9/4 by the end of the level, and it kind of corresponds because like the weirder time signatures are in the higher levels, which are the harder ones. And I think it was just part of like we were trying to push on. We wanted to keep things super simple, where you're just this beetle with one button and one stick, but we wanted to push in every other direction. Like, the time signatures get weirder. The obviously the obstacles get more dense and crazy. sort of a spoiler, like even like starts playing with the time, the speed of time, like all these things that you're not supposed to do in a rhythm game, like slow down or speed up, like we do, because it's all just kind of about pushing the player's like ability as far as we can. Was a goal of the game.
That seems hard, right? Like cliches, stereotypes, archetypes, like rules of thumb when it comes to game design are there for a reason. So, like, what sort of trouble did you run into when you were sort of messing around with those core tenets of what a rhythm game is supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely are there for a reason. And like, I think what we kind of did is we had Thumper follows a lot of conventions of games, just not necessarily rhythm games. Like we looked a lot at like action games, or even like racing games, like the feel of Mario Kart plus kind of the satisfying like hits of like a Platinum Games action games, like a beat 'em up.
Yeah, sure, a Vanquish.
Right. And we just did a lot of experiments too. Like not everything worked out, but what we found was like as long as the game like feels like super fast and fun and intense, then we can kind of break these rules. And there's certain people that don't like it. Certain people like feel like it's not. Whatever. It's been criticized for not like following these rhythm game conventions, but for us, like the only way to be like creative sometimes is to sort of take an adversarial stance towards like conventions and try to find new ideas that way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes Thumper stand out among the pack of rhythm games is it's very immersive, but I don't want to use immersive because that's such an overused term. It's very it yokes the player into its reality and doesn't let them go, right? Like if you are going to succeed at this game, you need to be so tuned in and focused to the sound and the movements and the colors that you really feel like you are taken away somewhere else in a way that like not a lot of rhythm games do, right? At least I think so. I was going back and looking at some stuff. We had a writer speak to you guys, I think last year on time of the game's release, and somebody, it was either I think it might have been you or it might have been somebody else, mentioned that like this game is designed so that everything appears to be diegetic. Like all the sounds, beats, thumps, everything sort of like matches up as though the beetle is making that noise by actually running into the walls or hitting over power-ups or whatever. And I wanted to talk a little bit about like why you made that decision and what is important to you about making this whole thing feel like a holistic world. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that it was a big aesthetic goal. It was a big goal of Brian in particular, like to do that. And I think for me personally, both Brian and I like have been inspired and enjoy a lot of different types of music that aren't just like pop music or dance music or rock music. And I feel like most rhythm games follow those genres of music, and they're really about playing a song. Like the song kind of exists outside of the space of the game. You could like listen to the song outside of the game, and it would be like enjoyable to do that. Like I don't know that most people would just listen to Thumper gameplay audio.
Yeah, that'd be real stressful.
Yeah, and so I think it was sort of just about trying to explore like what can't music have a different function in rhythm games or something? Can it work differently? And there's so many types of music that are based on like not around a song structure or like not around like a traditional song structure, or there's like things like musique concrète, right, which is used for like found sounds in an environment that are like pasted together and manipulated into one composition. So we look for all these kind of different things for sources of inspiration, and then it's just basically Brian's like ability as a musician to kind of tie it all together into like an actual game.
Yeah, I would love to go back to your time at Harmonix and like sort of the formation of this game as an idea, because I know you've been working on it for years and years and years. But first, I want to check in with Brian and say, Brian, how are you doing inside that rhythmic violin world?
Not good, Tom.
Yeah.
You're actually not doing bad, but you're definitely at like one of the choke points for a lot of players, which is this level 3 boss.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm bad at video games. But it's like you said, like I'm coming to an awareness of how diegetic it all is. Like every sound comes from it, so the music is like, we have the audio turned down so that we can hear Marc's sage insight. But like all the little dun 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 dun, and me just trying to mimic it just put me off. Like it all comes from the beetle bouncing off the things. I guess kind of the vibe. Like I'm kind of. I know you said it was kind of Ben's like vision to have all of that come together. Dang it. But I'm kind of curious what you think it means to be able to like put music into gameplay like this. Like this isn't like when you think about it, like this is actually some kind of heavy stuff that you're not just gameplaying to mimic a song that was made somewhere else, but gameplay and sound kind of coming together like this is kind of a big thing to think about, especially when you add like these visuals that you've put in. Can you sort of walk us through your thoughts about what that means to have a player that wrapped up in the sound and the rhythm?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was what we wanted to do, and it was definitely a shared vision. The way we got there was not like obvious. We kind of just really started from tools. Like we have the way that you make a level in Thumper is kind of like editing a step sequencer on a drum machine. It's like this linear timeline, and there's different rows, and like each row is either like audio information, gameplay information, or sort of visual, like decorative information. And I guess sort of the idea that like those things are all like integrated and not like privileged over one another, like was important to us. And that like the idea that the idea was like, yeah, if you're really making everything together, then like the audio shouldn't sound like a song or something, right? Like, action video games are all about repetition, and that's what like makes them feel good. It's like doing the same satisfying thing over and over. Like in Thumper, it's hitting the pads and like hitting the turns. Basically, is why you want to play the game.
Yeah,
and,
it's like it feels like in most rhythm games you are playing the song, and you mentioned this earlier. And like in this game, you are the song. Like you are in it. You are somehow wrapped up in it and creating it in front of you as it like flies past behind you. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's on point or not, but it's a rare thing in rhythm games, I think, these days. Yeah, sorry, I just cut you off there. I'm sorry. That was a good point. So let's talk about like the bosses, for example, are really strange and weird to me. Like, where did the inspiration come from to design these weird psychotropic nightmares that you guys call bosses?
Well, a lot of the visual design, especially of like the beetle character and of this giant floating head here, came from one of Brian's good friends, or our friend Matt Brinkman, who's like a really talented artist, and he just like did kind of pencil sketches of these things, and Brian actually made all the assets. Mm-hmm. But so the big head is sort of he's a recurring boss. He's at the end of every level, and he changes as you go through the game. So the game doesn't have a story or even like characters, but there is some kind of arc to his progression and what he represents.
Yeah.
That's kind of left to the player to think about it if they want.
Are you just does your team have a fear of terrifying floating heads?
No, it just seemed like an obvious thing. Like we had this track, and like, oh, it's kind of like crazy and a little disturbing that it's coming out of this thing's mouth. Mm-hmm. Was one of the things, and it's just like I think like giant video game head is just this like trope that we were interested in. It's like Star Fox or Sinistar or something, like these games that we liked. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then all the other, there's like every level has at least like one mini boss, I guess you could say, sometimes two.
The triangles.
And those are, yeah, they're made out of like tentacles, or there's like a big worm. There's a bunch of stuff that were all just kind of visual experiments that Brian did using like our technology that we used to make the whole game. Like just briefly, like the way the track is built and all the decorative tentacles and many of the bosses is all using this vertex shader thing we developed to basically make these kind of smooth, seamless sequences of meshes that we can colorize and bend and twist and all this stuff. So he was just like really good at taking this one kind of core piece of tech and making like the whole game with it.
Right on. Yeah. I want to circle back. We mentioned very briefly, we glossed over your history. It might be really useful for our audience to know like kind of what your career in game development has looked like and how your time at places like Harmonix sort of influenced the way you built this game and sort of why you thought it was necessary?
Sure. So I personally, I studied computer science, graduated in like 2003. Then I got my first like game job at Harmonix 2005. And that was a good experience because like I also joined at like exactly the right time. I was right when Guitar Hero was like in development. So I got to like experience all the excitement of that and Rock Band, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So yeah, I learned a lot at Harmonix about making big games. I didn't really do like graphics programming. I didn't really get to do gameplay programming. And Brian was there. Brian also worked at Harmonix, and he was an effects artist. He never did like audio for games, or he never did like art direction or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian kind of had this simple idea for a game that he called Thumper, and back then it was sort of similar, but it was more about like moving on a grid. And anyway, it was like a very, very rough kind of prototype idea. And he actually presented it internally at Harmonix, something to make, and they rejected it. Rejected it maybe a couple times. And anyway, Brian and I just started moonlighting, and then it was just something we thought would be fun to do as like sort of like a band and not like a company, like most indie developers. And then it just kind of kept going and going. And I decided I wanted to make all the technology behind Thumper. I wanted to make the engine, the tools, everything, the rendering myself. And when I started, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I was pretty pigeonholed at what I did at Harmonix. It was mostly like menus and user interface stuff.
Right.
So I would say the biggest, like Thumper was not just like a creative thing. It was a huge educational thing. It's like took us like 7 years to make it. A lot of it was just like figuring out how to do it. And I think that for me, this is the best way to learn, and I totally am happy with it, even though it took so long. And then just snowballed. We quit our jobs, and now we're just doing Thumper. We're doing ports of Thumper.
Nice. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to ask, you've made Thumper for VR, you've made Thumper for the Switch. What does it feel like to be kind of one of the few developers who's done both on that front?
It feels pretty weird in a way, because like I just feel super, super lucky. And I don't mean that just in like, that like Sony and Nintendo let us do it. It's more like that we had a game that actually could work on both. This is like, because, well, the original target platform for this was Xbox 360, right? We saw like Braid and stuff. We're like, yeah, we're going to do that. Let's just get it out on Xbox Live Arcade and see what happens.
Sure.
And just kept going. Like, we just were never like happy with where it was at, and kept getting better, and we were pretty slow. And with VR in particular, we had no idea that this game would be playable in VR. If you just showed this to somebody who's not experienced with like the kind of science behind motion sickness, they might think that you would get super sick in VR, but you actually don't. And that has to do with, I think, just the fact that you're generally always moving at a constant speed. There's not acceleration and deceleration. So yeah, that happened, and then the Switch opportunity came up too, and it is really amazing that like it works well on the Switch too. It even works well on like the small screen.
So like that's nuts that you basically coded this from scratch. You rolled your own engine, and now you've ported it to like vastly different platforms than it was originally on. That there's too much. Like we could do a whole hour on that. So like, but I do want to get in there somehow. Like I want like what advice would you give other developers who are looking to maybe do their own engines as well, instead of just taking a Unity or an Unreal off the shelf?
Well, it's definitely not the right choice for everybody. Depends what your goals are, right? Like, and how, I mean, are you the kind of person that can actually stay enthusiastic? and can you like, and another trick too is just like, it's super hard, right? It's a ton of work, overwhelming amount of work, and the only way to kind of stay short-term motivated is by like convincing yourself that it's not that hard and that you can actually do it.
Sure.
And as long as you don't give up, then sure, you'll make it there eventually. And I like there were advantages to having my own engine. Like with PSVR, like I had this thing running on PS4 and it was like barely 60 frames per second, and then like less than a year before it came out, we decided to do VR, and now suddenly it has to be 90 frames per second, and I have to render everything twice for each eye, the VR headset.
So how did you do that? That's nuts.
Well, right. I think we're in a fortunate position where like we're not a AAA game where we have like 20 artists who all made these assets that were on one set of specifications. I also didn't really know what I was doing, so like I was able to find a lot of mistakes and things that I could fix. And I had a custom engine where I could really go super deep and change whatever I wanted. Like with Unity or something like that, you might have painted yourself into a corner that you can't get out of. And that's not to say that you shouldn't use Unity, especially if you're just starting out. Like, it might be the best move. At least make something. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that. I do think in general, like making your own engine and stuff is something that shouldn't be seen as so scary and crazy. A lot of it has to do with the way people are taught about like what programming is and what's hard about it. And I think if maybe education were a little bit better and in the way people learn programming, it wouldn't seem quite so intimidating.
What do you think they should know? Like this is out of my depth, but like if you were going to talk to other budding game programmers, like what should they know that maybe they don't about what's involved with making an engine?
Well, I mean, this gets into my own personal opinions and stuff about programming, but
I know, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know that like I studied computer science for 4 years, and certainly I learned stuff during that time, but I don't think I really learned that much about how to make a big game like Thumper. Part of it is that it wasn't a game programming focused computer science degree, but also like the language we have, C++, is quite it needs to die. And I don't know if you've heard like Jonathan Blow's new language, but I'm very excited about that. And just the attitude towards certain things that people are given, like like memory management's really hard. Like you need to use a garbage collected language, otherwise you spend all of your time tracking down memory leaks. It's not really true if you know how to manage memory, or if you're taught like some pretty simple techniques in doing it. There's things like object-oriented programming, which I think we're trying to solve a problem, but really, really failed. And it's really sad to me that that's the default way people seem to learn programming now, because I think it's bad. So I don't know. These are just a few things of like what I learned from actually doing what I wanted to do. And that is what I would tell people if they're going to program games, like high-end games. But people have different opinions, and I think there's stuff like Handmade Hero now, right, where you can actually see the process. And it's just like there's a lot of like authoritative books on programming out there that I just don't agree with anymore, because I don't think, or it's certainly not when it comes to making games.
Yeah, fair enough. We are way past where I know anything at this point. But I will say, I don't think we've covered it too much on Gamasutra yet, but if you just go look up Jonathan Blow's Twitter account, he is irregularly talking about his new programming project, and it's kind of nuts. You mentioned that was one of the things you learned about getting to work on your own project. Like, was there anything else that like really shaped the way you make games or live your life, for the better or worse?
Yeah, I mean, this has been such a long project, 7 years. I mean, it certainly changed me too, right? And I think a big thing was, like now when I go into the next project, I kind of know more what to expect about what it's going to feel like, because whatever we make next, and I think we've kind of already decided it's not going to be Thumper. We're just going to let Thumper die or whatever. Maybe it'll live on.
Live forever as a perfect beetle.
Somewhere. Yeah. I mean, hopefully people still play the game, but like for us, like creatively, it just needs to die. And that's so that we can do something new. And I think whatever we do that's going to be new will be worse than Thumper for a long time. And there'll probably be a point where like we've been working on it and there's a lot of questions we don't know the answers to, and people that we show it to won't be able to help us solve them. And we'll kind of be out in this wilderness, right, where you don't know like what's happening, but you need to sort of embrace that as an invigorating, exciting time. And that's where I feel like Thumper was really creatively fun, but it took a long time to find the confidence. Like I didn't really know was Thumper like broken and not fun back then because we didn't know what we were doing, or just because that's the way it always goes. So I think it's about finding confidence and sticking to your guns, which is not easy, especially when you're investing like years of your life into something.
Yeah, it's been like we on our side we try to share. Well, we try to share knowledge. Like we try to help collect and sort of like sift through and then share useful knowledge about making games and the art and business of that. And like a deep dark truth that we don't talk about as much as probably we should is that most people we talk to don't know what they're doing. Even if they've made multiple successful games in the past and are working somewhere that they are very comfortable, every project is a total just like it's like stepping out into the wilderness and they don't know what to do first and they don't necessarily know how it's going to go until they're right in it. I wish you could give me some kind of useful nugget of advice that we could share with everyone else, but I'm not sure there is one when it comes to that kind of challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's more than just like imposter syndrome or something, right? It's like it's when you are trying to do something new, of course, like you're gonna feel stupid all the time, or like I'm a really bad drummer, but I just like playing. I mean, like in that, like it's not that big priority for me. I just play once in a while and like
for fun, yeah.
Yeah, and whenever you try to do something that's like 1% different than like a pattern you played before or something, you can't do it. Like you have to go back to square one, like play slowly, practice. So you always feel bad, and like you can always feel stupid whenever you're trying to do something new.
Yeah, and there's something cool about that. Like I think in the U.S. at least, there's been like a real shift towards like in celebrating creative skills as something that makes someone different or important or meaningful or wealthy. Like there's a subtle like disincentive for anyone to play music for fun. It's like if you're not good at it and if you're not practicing all the time, then why do it, right? Because you're never gonna break big on YouTube or whatever. And I wish more people would do that. Just have a good time with it. But you're actually not in the U.S. You're in Korea, right?
Yep.
Can we talk about that for a second? I mean,
sure.
How did you find yourself in Korea, and how is the game dev scene over there?
Well, I'm here because my wife is not Korean, but she got a job at a Korean university about 6 years ago. So we moved here together. And so, yeah, I mean, I just live here and I work at home. This is my office that I'm sitting in right now.
It's very spacious. Very classy.
Thanks. And so yeah, I just live here, but it's cool because when I worked in the States at a big company, I didn't really feel so much of like a community around me outside of like my coworkers. But as an indie developer, you kind of have to seek that out. And so here in Korea, where like when I showed up here, I didn't know a single word of Korean. But now we've got like a monthly meetup of indie devs. It's kind of like a lot of other scenes, but it's cool to see things here really like taking off and growing in a cool way where I just see like developers maybe having more confidence to do things like release games on Steam or something. Like I don't know, just like the Korean market's been very dominated by like mobile games, and that's kind of the only thing that a lot of Korean indie developers thought would be a reasonable goal for themselves. And I mean, I'm speaking very broadly. There's a lot of exceptions to this, but now, like I see, like just the number of interesting and cool games like increasing, which is really cool. And we have, I actually help organize a festival in Busan, Korea, which is the second biggest city in Korea every year, called Busan Indie Connect. And we're gonna have one of those in September, and it's super fun. And it's like we like invite international speakers and developers and stuff. So, yeah, if anyone's interested in seeing what it's like, I would definitely recommend coming to Busan Indie Connect.
Yeah, I feel like from over here, like the outside perception is often just that Korea is dominated by esports and mobile, and that's kind of it.
Right.
And I would love to know like what is the indie like? You say like a lot of developers are feeling more comfortable in the last couple of years in trying things on like PC and other platforms. Have you noticed anyone playing those kind of games in that area, or is it a country that's mostly dominated in fact by mobile phones in the way that like Japan seems to have become?
Well, I think it's like the mainstream like big games, like when you ride the subway and you see these billboards for games, like they're all for like these mobile, usually really terrible games like action RPG or whatever, like clickers. or whatever.
Ah.
And I don't know. I don't even play games on my phone, but
What?
and then esports are very important, but yeah, and so, but of course, there's a lot of people here that are just into interesting games, and I think that more and more, like, a big thing we're trying to do is like grow the awareness of indie games, right? Just like, this is not my analogy, but someone might know this, that was saying how, like, yeah, sort of like organic food, like that didn't used to be a thing, but now people are like willing to like think of it as something that's important and even worth paying more money for, because it's like important to them, and they believe like not only in the product but in like the way of life that goes into like making the product. And so I think that's sort of what we're trying to do here. And the Switch isn't out here yet, but there's a lot of hardcore gamers that are importing it and playing it. I think just having things like a festival and a community is actually really important. Like, just like, like it meant a lot to me when I went to Bit Summit for the first time in 2014 and showed my game.
Right.
I was like on a little laptop right next to like the Unreal booth or something, right? And like I was like, I don't want to show these guys up, but I'll show my game here, and that kind of experience that means a lot to developers. So I think the more that we kind of have that in Korea, the more that you'll just see like cooler games.
Yeah, that sounds rad, and like I feel guilty that I don't better know what's going on over there in the indie scene. Is there somewhere you would point people to if they wanted to check out what's up with the Korean indie scene right now?
That's a good
Twitter
question.
account, some website.
Well, I mean, again, I hate like promoting this festival that I help organize, but
it's cool.
I don't hate it, but it's my own example. Is like, if you go to bicfest.org and like click on 2016, like last year's festival, you can see all the games that we showed. But like, just off the top of my head, there was Replica was a Korean-made game, which is this sort of game about cracking an iPhone as a spy, and it won awards at Indiecade last year.
I did see that. I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's made by my friend Somi, which is an alias, because he's a police officer in real life, and it's not like he doesn't want the rest of his employee. He doesn't want his employer to know that he also moonlights as an indie game developer.
This sounds like the coolest person. I want to meet them immediately.
He's awesome.
Do you think he'll ever do interviews, or is he too nervous about breaking cover?
Oh, I'm sure he would do an interview. I mean, he's accepted awards. He just wears sunglasses when he accepts.
Nice. Have to like big police sunglasses too. Like just giant aviators. Brian, you're back. You came back. How you doing in there?
Getting wrecked by this boss. I'm making progress. This boss is just like I'm losing my zen. That's what's happening. And then I was like, why am I getting wrecked? And then I was like, oh God, snakes. There's snakes, and that was where I'm reacquiring my zen. Marc, my next question for you is it's really cool to hear that Nintendo was interested in this game. Oh my, are you serious? How did I miss that? It's really cool to hear they were interested in this game because they were thinking of it for the vibration of the Switch. Now that like Thumper does such a good job of like creating little different sensations on these Joy-Cons, how would you advise their developers to think about like making good rumble control? Like, what do you think makes good rumble stuff now that the Switch is pushing this boundary for the first time in a few years?
HD.
This HD rumble.
Yeah, I think it's just I think every game's different, and I think in Thumper we kind of push the envelope in like how often the rumble happens. And for a lot of games, it might be better to use it more sparingly than we did. But it is it's not an overwhelming amount of work to do, but it is like kind of new, and it does take obviously it takes more work than the traditional rumble motor, just because there's more you can do with it. Nintendo actually has really nice tools and some thoughts on how to go about this, but you can kind of think of it from you could kind of think about it from making canned effects, like think about it the way you would think about sound effects, but now it's like a rumble effect. Or you can kind of do real-time things, there's certain things where we ramp up the intensity of pre-authored effects in Thumper based on like how hard you're leaning into the corner or something, into the rail. And I think combining those two things, like having like a high fidelity like pre-authored effect plus like some real-time modulation, you can go really far with just that. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, fair. We should check in on what it's been like to work remotely. Since I gather you and Brian aren't within like walking distance of each other.
Yeah.
How
Everything's walking distance if you try hard enough.
within a reasonable walking distance
That
of
was
each
the
other.
stupidest joke I've ever made on this channel. I'm sorry.
Whatever, it's Friday. Let's just let it go. So like and also it was a great joke. Don't feel bad. It was perfect. Like what's it been like to work remotely for this long of a time on a project like this? How like I don't mean to presume how you feel, but most developers we talk to who are in this situation go a little crazy and they have to come up with coping strategies to deal with it. And I want to know if that's the case with you, and if so, like how have you managed?
Yeah, I think that certainly there are parts of the project where we got burned out, one or the other of us, and I think just recognizing that and like thinking about the causes of it is important. But I think the way like we got away with it was, I mean, we both kind of like working alone, and there's certain times that it's frustrating that I can't just like turn around and like, tell him something. So like we would obviously just Skype or chat or whatever daily if we could, and then a lot of it involved sending emails. One thing we did was like sort of integrate our editor with email a little bit, where like it's a really really simple way where like any object, so like in like a level file in Thumper there's like hundreds maybe thousands of objects, and you can copy like a URL that represents the location of that object and paste it into an email, send it to the other person, and then when that person clicks it, opens editor on their machine and opens up that specific object. So I can say stuff.
Did you do version control at all? Like, or are you just working off one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, version control, but I can just be like, hey, Brian, like this material is not configured correctly. That's why it's not rendering the way you want. And then rather than like having to sort of describe the location with words, and with him like having to then like parse that and find it, I can just send this link. And that makes it, I mean, just stuff like that didn't actually make a big difference, and just like a kind of happiness working on the project. There were a few moments when, like, especially when I was still living in the States, where we would just spend a weekend together working on it, or when we were doing the VR stuff, the PSVR, he was here in this office for like 3 days, like slept on the floor of his office, and we basically just like worked. Like he didn't see any of Korea. We just worked on PSVR.
Oh my god.
I've had work trips like that. That's the worst, but also the best.
Well, we were in Japan before that, so I think he was just like, he got his tourism in there, and then we just focused on VR here.
Yeah. Nicholas Wagner.
Korea looks just like Thumper, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say Nicholas Wagner in chat is very impressed that you created your own kind of anchor link style setup. He thinks that's very clever. So kudos.
Yeah. There's actually a URL where I talk about how I did it. I made a blog post too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Drop that in chat. Let's get into it. Something I wanted to ask at the top that I felt was probably kind of silly, but I don't know the answer is, and someone else is in chat is asking, so I'm going to ask too, is like, what's up with this art style? Like, where did this come from? It's very iconic. It's singular. There aren't a lot of games that look like this. Like, is this just someone's nightmare? Did it come from a specific album cover?
No, it was kind of like what I was saying. Like there were like a big inspiration was this our concept artist who did like a few early sketches. This guy Matt Brinkman. If you Google Matt Brinkman, you'll see a lot of really psychedelic stuff.
Nice.
Let me see if I can type it into this Twitch chat. Matt Brinkman. Oh wait, I have to log into Twitch 1 second. So there's that. There's Matt Brinkman. There's this like technology we developed for making like the track like seamless and smooth, which we then use to make all these like tentacles and a lot of the boss characters and those little snakes.
I hate the
and
snakes.
There's like, yep. And there's like Brian's like kind of adherence to doing this really kind of simple, stark, minimalist sort of presentation and vision. And I think we were inspired by so many different visual media, everything from like weird music videos, or to like 2001, just the kind of stark monolithic, terror of like simple geometry was a big thing we were going for.
Yeah, there's an interview up on Gamasutra from last year when I think Brian tells our writer that 2001, and especially like that sting that plays when the monolith comes on screen, was sort of influential in the way this game was designed. So that's kind of interesting. You mentioned there's something that stood out to me is the idea that you use this same tech to build the long sinewy snaking roads and the actual snakes in the sky and everything else. It's kind of interesting to me that this whole game is sort of revolves around long sinewy pathways. How did you what does that mean when you say you have specific tech that does that? Was it tricky? Was it at all sort of unique? What is it that gives this game its long sinewy style?
Well, it all involves 1 second, let me just choose the URL link. I'll put it in the text. In the chat. Okay.
Nice.
So the idea was it all started from, and this is something I explain in detail in my GDC talk, which I think you can watch in the GDC Vault.
Oh, yeah.
But when you see these turns coming at the player right now, they're these smooth surfaces, but before we didn't really know how turns should work. At first they were just these 90-degree turns like this, and they were 90 degrees with a gap or slightly bent. And there's this gap here, right, between my two hands.
Right.
And then ultimately we wanted them to be a smooth thing, like this. But we still wanted to be totally modular, where everything was quantized and represented by beats. And we wanted it to be. Sorry, the Twitch is really disrupting me. I had
That's my whole life. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And then so solving that one problem and how to make smooth track that we could scale and bend and twist with gameplay information, we developed this vertex shader which bends vertices and so when you're going down the track, there's actually tons of little meshes all sequenced together, but it looks like one contiguous smooth surface. So here, there's a tunnel around you too. That tunnel is also one mesh that's sequenced and just bent to follow this path. And then the little tentacles coming on the side are also just a bunch of little meshes, one mesh that's just sequenced and scaled and animated. And these tentacles on this checkpoint up here are all the same thing. And it was really, Brian really likes taking kind of simple tool and going really far with it. And that's totally what he did. So a lot of the more psychedelic bosses, they're all kind of the same thing.
So which comes first, the music or the level?
I think the level. I think the gameplay, really focusing on the interactions and how they feel, but they were really kind of authored together. And a lot of the audio in Thumper is super repetitive, and that was kind of the point. The point is that it never lets up and just sort of oppresses you with the sound of it.
So something I wanted to ask going into this that I sort of tiptoed around, but now's a good time. Why oppress people? What is it about this kind of game that you think is so captivating, and why make something that sort of pushes people in this weird sort of oppressive way, audio visually?
Yeah, I don't think we didn't want to make a game that was super punishing and difficult necessarily. It kind of ended up being really difficult, but I think it's something about rhythm games that just also feel really frustrating if you're not doing them right. Fundamentally, because you know exactly what you're supposed to do and you just can't do it. So there's this frustration loop. But the game is not that punishing. You get to restart at every checkpoint. You have infinite lives.
Yeah.
If you put in the time, you'll totally beat it. I think that there's a lot of other games that are probably a lot harder in certain ways. But anyway, I think that it was kind of we just wanted to push on this whole lizard brain action game concept. you're just doing these things over and over because it's just so simple and addictive, and really not shy away from that, and go as far as we could with that. And for some people that feels oppressive, but I think once you get like good at the game, it probably hopefully just feels kind of fun or exhilarating. And like the game, like every level you play gets faster. Like the tempo just goes up. There's no like respite. It's just like increase. And like part of that is I think that as you get better, like you need it to go faster to stay interesting. So it might be fun to go back and play the old levels that are now easy for you, but like to really stay engaged, like you just keep ratcheting it up. And we just decided to be single-minded about certain things.
Yeah, was there any motivation for that? Like, was it a response to anything you see in game development, or was it just something that just felt right and you went with it?
Yeah, I think it felt right. I think we also just kind of thought of classic arcade games, and what's fun about them, and just kind of this cool sensation that you don't get from a lot of games. I mean, so many games now that have to have so much kind of window dressing or ceremony to like get you into the experience. And in Thumper, we just wanted it to be like people pick up the controller and they're like, "Whoa, I'm playing already! Like I'm going."
It must have been nuts to port that to VR, right? Because then you're literally sticking someone's head inside of it, and it's just were there any like significant changes there? Like I think we kind of covered this before, but like just let's dig in quickly here at the end. Like when you brought it over to VR, how did that change what Thumper is and how you design it?
It didn't really change much. Like it's all the same gameplay, and we were really lucky that we really didn't have to change gameplay. But we changed a lot of sort of visual presentation things. Like in VR, the turns are not as sharp. They're maybe like 50% as sharp, and that sort of like helps you see them better because you don't have as wide a field of view. You have to use the field of view of your headset, and there's certain things like the camera angle is different. Some of the visual effects are different. The track is actually stretched out, so you're actually moving twice as fast, but it feels about the same speed. And this is again because of the field of view of VR. And then another, like a really important thing that we had to figure out was how big you are. Because like when you look at this game right now, like you don't really have any concept of the scale of these things. Like that beetle could be like a little tiny guy, or it could be like a car.
Yeah.
And so we went back and forth, and like at one point it was like where the beetle was like about the size of your head, and that really felt like you're going like face first down this thing. So like if you moved your head side to side, it would would move a lot. And that it was like too much. It was like a little unpleasant. So like now the beetle's like about the size of your chest, or he's about like 40 centimeters, I think. So it sort of feels like you're going down a slide, like a slip and slide or something. And that felt like it's like about the sweet spot. So that's like what it's actually, how big the beetle is.
It's like a water slide to hell. I don't know. In my time with this game, like this game seems very cathartic, and like it's so relentless, and it's not hard like you mentioned earlier. I didn't mean to imply that it was hard. It's very oppressive, and when you get small victories, then it feels like a small release. And I assume, having never gotten to the end, that at the end there's some great moment of catharsis. But who knows? I don't think we're going to get there today. Brian, how you doing? We've been there for about an hour.
I'm going down to hell. No, I have a question for Mark. One question before we go. If this game was released on the SNES back in the day, what would the weird cover art look like, and what weird backstory would they put in the manual?
That's a good question. I don't know what the cover art would be. Like, there's no like illustrative art we've ever done for Thumper. All the art has been just like in the game. And
well, it's a scarab beetle, right?
What's that?
It's a scarab beetle, right? Or am I just totally off with that? Maybe it's like a pyramid in front of a blood red moon.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, it would be cool if it was just the beetle or something. But I feel like SNES games were never that like minimalistic with their cover art. So, I don't know. It would probably be like the giant skull with the beetle flying into its mouth or something, which is what we actually do.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And what was the other part of that question?
What would be the weird like backstory that they'd put in the manual?
Oh, right. We tried to have a backstory.
Really? What was it?
Well, like the big I don't know. There's just a bunch of dumb things that I was telling people to see how they would react. But ultimately, it came. the game is just so much better without a backstory and just maybe some visual themes and motifs. But the big name of the skull is Crackhead, and so I always just say really stupid things to people like, oh, it's like he's been addicted to crack for 3,000 years or something like that, and
now he's finally free.
He's like the crackhead. He's just since the dawn of time.
Yeah, so all of that's not canon, but that was stuff we were thinking about, or that I don't know. He was he's from the future or something like that. It's stupid.
All right, I'm actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and do our outro without dying.
Good luck.
You have been listening to the Gamasutra Twitch channel, and you've been watching it too. The game is Thumper by Drool, and we have been joined today by Drool's own Marc Flury. I am Brian Francis, the Beetle before you and Gamasutra contributing editor. And Alex, who are you?
I'm still me. I'm still Alex Waro, editor at Gamasutra. Thank you all so much for watching, and Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for watching me die repeatedly at this game. Bye.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Well, guess what? I can't turn off the stream until I die. So
this happened to me yesterday. I was like, goodbye. Oh, I can't go yet.
Yep. Here we go. Till I die.
Happy weekend.
Everyone's trapped here with me now. I'll pause.
Is this what it's like to be in rhythm hell?
This level's long.
Brian, just do it. Just let it go.
No.
Man. Everyone's got to start their weekend, except for Mark, it's morning. Is it morning on Saturday over there?
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Bye.